Hi, my name is Jason Salemi. I'm an associate professor of epidemiology at the University of South Florida College of Public Health. And today I want to do a very brief video on how vaccination rates impact COVID 19 hospitalization rates at the state level. First, I do want to do a very brief Florida update. On my old dashboard, when Florida was providing very granular information, I used to have a summary dashboard that captured cases and testing and vaccines and hospitalizations and deaths. And since I've converted my dashboard, I had failed to include a summary dashboard. And so as of today, you will find this as the first visualization on my webpage, and it helps us to just show where we're at. And again, a lot of positive movement on cases. We've had a pretty steep decline. I would remind you that even though we've had a steep decline, we're still very near where we were in the winter surge, which was the highest number of cases pre-Delta. In terms of positivity, which is this purple line here, again, we've been on a pretty pronounced descent for the past couple of weeks, and we've kept testing, which are the bars here, relatively high. We're making very slow progress on increasing vaccination rates, but they do continue to go up. The shaded area curve in the background are the number of doses that we are administering weekly. So obviously what we've been doing of late does not compare at all to where we were in April, but we are making slow but steady progress. Another really good sign is our indicators of severe illness. For just about every age group in Florida of late, you've seen a downturn in new COVID-19 admissions. And of course, the last two visualizations here show deaths. Deaths are a different story. Remember, they are lagged indicators. So right now, we are very much in a scenario where cases, positivity, hospitalizations are going down, but deaths continue to increase if you go by the number that we are learning about on a weekly basis. And then even weekly percent all-cause excess deaths, that's a mouthful, but that's tending to mirror what we're seeing with COVID-19 deaths. Remember, all-cause excess deaths look at not only deaths directly due to the virus, but also deaths indirectly associated with the pandemic. And again, as you might expect, because we've had recently an all-time high in terms of COVID-19 deaths, that has also been matched by our all-cause excess deaths. In fact, in the month of August, we were the highest in the nation in terms of all-cause excess deaths as a percent. Again, these are things that you'll see on my dashboard. I will not go over all of these numbers, but again, suffice it to say it's what I just showed you in those visualizations. When we talk about cases, again, you could just focus here. Since about August 12th, we stayed flat for a little while, and as of late, our 7-day average number of daily cases has continued to decrease, but remains somewhat high. If we look at vaccines, right, if we look at the 65 and older population, the 18 to 64 and the 12 to 17, again, slow but steady progress in increasing the percentages of people who are fully vaccinated. But as you can see by these numbers at the bottom right, we still have a ways to go. 5.3 million people 18 to 64 who are not fully vaccinated, over 760,000 seniors still not fully vaccinated, and children 12 to 17 years old, nearly 1 million not fully vaccinated. Again, wonderful news on the current COVID-19 hospitalizations. We see people who are adults in the ICU continues to go down. The number of adults hospitalized stays high, but is continuing to go down. Same thing with children who are currently hospitalized, as well as new daily admissions. These are really good numbers to see. And then, of course, deaths, again, those are still increasing because they are a lagged indicator. Okay, enough with the Florida update. Let's get back to the purpose of this video, which is vaccines and hospitalizations. So just last week, I was talking to one of the reporters from a New York Times article that came out, Amy Schoenfeld-Walker, and they did a really nice story. One of the visualizations that they included in this story was comparing COVID-19 admissions for both adults and children in the 10 most vaccinated states compared with the 10 least vaccinated states. And it's very clear with this visualizations, if we just focus on adults, obviously, adult hospitalization rates are much higher in the 10 states that have the lowest vaccination rates. And it's even the same thing in the pediatric population, although the rates of hospitalization are much lower. We see a big difference between the least vaccinated states versus the most, but it got me to thinking, Well, this doesn't make use of 31 different jurisdictions and states, the ones in the middle. So I thought, can we first of all include all of the states in the assessment? And secondly, I know that even among adults, to lump them all together, there's a big difference in the age distribution of people in different states. So I wanted to see if we could get a more granular assessment, especially in the adult population, maybe looking at the different strata by age. And so on my dashboard now, I've included a visualization like this. It's much more interactive. You can hover over it and get a lot more information. But at the heart of the matter, what it's trying to do is it's using the most current vaccination rates. So in this case, it was vaccination rates as of September 11th. And it's putting the states into different quartiles based on their vaccination rates. And you can see what those quartiles consist of. So the lowest quartile is 54.2% or lower of people of vaccine eligible age who are currently fully vaccinated. And we go up to the high. And, the nice thing about this is the bottom bar is the youngest age group, and the top bar in red here is the oldest age group, those individuals who are 80 plus. So it does a better job of giving you all of the different age strata. And just upon the initial look, when you're glancing at this, what you can clearly see is there is a big difference. There's not a huge difference between quartile 2 and quartile 3, but certainly as you move from quartile 1 to quartile 4, you see a really big difference and it's the same message from the New York Times article that the lower vaccinated states have the highest hospitalization rates. And a different way of looking at this, because what this makes it challenging to do is some of these at the bottom here, because the axis is driven by the older people here. Can you really get at the differences in the younger age group? So this just presents the same information in different ways. In this case, each of the boxes is a different age group, and you have the red is the first quartile. The blue is the fourth quartile. So fourth quartile would mean the most vaccinated states. The red are the least vaccinated states. And what you can see very consistently is the exact same message no matter what age group we're talking about. The states in the lowest quartile of full vaccination rates had the highest hospitalization rates across the board, and a clear difference from those in the the highest quartile of vaccination rates. And then you see that those in the second and third quartiles, kind of in the middle, they're more similar, but you see this, right around this point, you start to see a separation of the two. And again, clear association, at least at the state level, between vaccination rates and hospitalization rates. And as my little title here says, this is only at the state level. I don't bring in any other sociodemographic or geospatial characteristics. The lower vaccinated states may also engage in mitigation behaviors to a lesser degree. Again, a lot of different things that could be explaining the difference in the hospitalization rates. But again, at least at this state level correlation, it is a strong correlation. But I also got to thinking, well, what if we use vaccination rates not kind of in the current situation, but what about pre-Delta? So I looked at the exact same information, hospitalization rates over time, based on vaccination rates at the state level on July 1st. So, right around the time that we were getting ready to have a pretty pronounced increase in indicators of severe illness. And the story is interesting. It's similar, right? But you tend to see quartile 1 and quartile 2, those in the lowest two quartiles, they look very, very similar to one another. And those in quartiles 3 and 4 look very similar. So again, a big disparity in hospitalization rates based on state level vaccination rates, but you don't see that step down fashion across quartiles. Again, another way of looking at it is like this. And again, for most of the age groups, you can see that the red and the orange, the two lowest quartiles, are similar. There is a bit of separation for most of the ages, which the lowest quartile is doing the worst. They have the highest hospitalization rates, but they tend to be a lot more similar. And the highest two quartiles, the highest in terms of vaccination rates, tend to act very similarly. But again, the take-home message is the same thing that came out of the New York Times article is the more vaccinated a state is, the lower their hospitalization rates will be. And again, vaccination rates are probably just one of the things. We don't talk about weather patterns. We don't talk about mitigation behaviors. We don't talk about a lot of other things. But this at least provides some strong evidence for getting our communities more vaccinated. And I've seen a lot of people do this cross-sectionally, where they'll look at vaccination rates at one point in time and hospitalization rates, over the last 7 days. This at least builds in the trajectory of hospitalization rates over time. And if you wanted to know, this is another visualization that I include on my website now. If you want to know how states have changed in terms of their vaccination quartile, this is going from the most current date to I only go back to, I believe it's May 13th, when they actually started to report specifically for the 12 plus population. And so again, you can see, for example, Florida. Florida was in quartile 2, so the second lowest quartile in terms of vaccination rates, until early August when they switched into the third quartile. And so the assessments that I was doing was at two different time points for vaccination rates. It was right here on July 1st, and then the most recent date, but at least this gives you an idea of how these states are changing over time in terms of their classification. So that's it, just a little over 10 minutes. I wanted to just give you, taking that analysis from the New York Times, just a step forward and trying to provide more granular data. I will try and keep all of this information as up to date as I possibly can. And as always, if you have any questions, please let me know. Hope everybody's doing well, and I'll talk to you soon.